Chapter 19. Ice Lady. Kuitai let out a roar in pain. His tail was crushed by the Heavenly Zun divine seal, and the Zhuan turtle's body was even more immobilized by the suppression. The hard and incomparable turtle shell was actually smashed into pieces. No, impossible, you are Jindan realm. I opened the heavenly palace. No, the Zhuan turtle glared and hissed. Roar! The Zhuan snake, which had broken its tail, abruptly scurried towards the ancient sea. Emperor, be careful! Shangguan Trace exclaimed. Kuitai was only the weakest lower heavenly palace, but that was also the open heavenly palace all. The effect of the Heavenly Zun divine seal fetched was surprising, but the Emperor only had this one imperial seal all. What if the Zhuan snake rushes towards the Emperor? In the distance, the great Ming God King and the white-robed woman also stared at Guhai in death after their initial surprise. The Zhuan snake rushed to the sky with a magnificent momentum, and in an instant, countless thunderbolts were about to arrive. In front of Guhai in the twinkling of an eye along with the hideous serpent head, as if it was going to bite the flying boat to pieces in one gulp. HMPH. Guhai let out a cold snort. Without the Heavenly Zun divine seal, am I helpless? However, Guhai was seen slowly taking out the repaired string puppet pole. While everyone was puzzled, he gently flung it. Buzz! Steeply, the imposing, hideous rushing snake head abruptly stopped. The lightning in the sky suddenly disappeared. The Zhuan snake stared wide-eyed, fixed in the air, and the countless officials and people in the city also looked at the snake head in shock. What? The Emperor took out a cross pole, and the snake head was afraid. Great brightness, King God, you have the eye of insight. What kind of treasure was that? It seems, the white-robed woman said suspiciously. The great brightness, King God said in a deep voice, that cross pole, sprouting transparent thin threads, manipulated the Zhuan snake's soul. It's somewhat like that cross pole in my Sun God Palace. An imitation of the cross of the 10 directions. The woman in white was surprised. Yes, one of the 16 great magic treasures of the ancient calendar. The 10 directions of destruction. This is just an imitation, yet it has some effect, the great brightness King God said in a deep voice. In the distance, the great Han generals on the flying boat however revealed a look of astonishment. This string puppet pole, hadn't it been chopped through by Immortal Wanna? The Emperor had fixed it. What's going on? I can't move, Zhuan Snake said in shock. Guhai coldly looked at Zhuan Snake. One finger can pinch me to death. Hey! Roar! Zhuan Snake twisted his body crazily. In an instant, its body shook up quickly, as if it was trying to break free from the string puppet pole. As the string puppet pole shook in his hand, Guhai's eyes turned cold as he waved his other hand. Boom! The rolling fire instantly incinerated the Zhuan Snake. What kind of flame is this, bastard? The Zhuan Snake screamed in terror. This is the undying divine flame. Guhai, he's a demonic beast. No, the white-robed woman said unexpectedly. The Zhuan turtle below was being pressed by the Heavenly Zun divine seal, and it was also twisting rapidly, trying to break free. The Zhuan Snake could have broken free, but, with the fire burning interference, the Zhuan Snake couldn't break free for a while. Go on, bite yourself. Guhai let out a cold shout. Boom! Under the string puppet pole, the Zhuan Snake twisted in pain and bit towards the Zhuan turtle. No, asshole, Guhai! The Zhuan turtle hissed at once. Boom! The Zhuan Snake violently bit off a piece of flesh from the Zhuan turtle. Release me, bastard, Kuitai said in a cold voice. Guhai ignored it and instead looked at Shangguan Trace. Shangguan Trace's eyes narrowed slightly, and a wave of killing intent went straight to Kuitai. What do you guys want? Great brightness, King God, save me! Kuitai steeply shrieked. Roar! However, he saw Shangguan Trace steeply open his mouth and suck in. In the distance, the great brightness King God's voice steeply sank as he probed out his right hand, seemingly about to strike. Suddenly, Kuitai's Zhuan snake's body was steeply and strangely swallowed by Shangwan Trace in an instant, and that body of several hundred zhong seemed to have shrunk to Shangwan Trace's mouth in an instant. As Shangwan Scar opened his mouth, Guhai also probed his hand and collected it. The string puppet pole and the undying divine flame were all collected back. Eaten. That Shangwan Trace really has a problem. It's definitely not just the Zhuan Wu God fragment, the white-robed woman said in shock. At this moment, the Heavenly Town God seal was also put away by Guhai's flipped hand. Shangwan Scar opened his mouth and sucked it towards the Zhuan Wu turtle. HMPH, the Great Brightness King God, let out a cold snort and probed his hand. Buzz. A green light shot towards Shangwan Scar. Guhai's face turned cold, and the Heavenly Zun divine seal that had just flown up didn't come back, but instead slammed into that finger of green light from the Great Brightness King God. Boom! The green light was like a pillar that actually toppled the Heavenly Zun divine seal. Buzz! The black pieces on the Heavenly Zun divine seal steeply emitted a faint black light. Boom! The green light was instantly crushed by the Heavenly Zun divine seal and exploded. The Great Brightness King God's face sank as his figure shifted, and he arrived close. At this moment, the Heavenly Zun divine seal shattered the Great Brightness King God's green light, but it instantly returned to Guhai's palm. On the other hand, Shangwan Trace ate Kuitai's turtle body in one bite as well. No, no. Kuitai shrieked in Shangwan Trace's mouth. The moment Shangwan Trace's mouth closed up, Kuitai seemed to see a radiant figure in the darkness. Zhuan Wu God, Zhuan Wu God, you're still alive. Impossible, impossible. Kuitai was in the midst of screaming in shock. However, it had already been swallowed into his stomach by Shangwan Trace, and the power of his whole body was quickly refined by Shangwan Trace. Bold, the Great Brightness King God immediately drank to Shangwan Trace. Great Brightness King God. An explosive cry rang out from the ancient sea. The Great Brightness King God, who was preparing to strike at Shangwan Trace, abruptly raised his head, and a chilling killing intent shot out from his black robe. Hehe, I saw much and send word that you came to me on behalf of your Lord Taiyi and came to thank me. That's how you thank. Taiyi's words, in front of you, are just farts. Guhai coldly said. How dare you? The Great Brightness King God let out a cold snort. Boom! A huge aura emanated from the Daming King God's circumference. The aura was ferocious and blew away 10,000 miles of clouds in an instant, and the mountain peaks below were even flying sand and stones. Guhai coldly looked at the Great Brightness King God, not letting go at all. On the side, Shangwan Trace laughed coldly. Great Brightness King God, you also went back on your word. Who said just now that you wouldn't intervene in the Zhuan Wu clan's affairs? It's only been a short while and you've gone back on your word. I said I wouldn't meddle in the Zhuan Wu clan's matters, but I didn't say I'd let others meddle. The Great Brightness King God coldly said. The Zhuan Wu clan is a beast of the Great Han Kingdom. The Great Han Dynasty and the Zhuan Wu clan are one. For the Emperor to intervene is also an internal matter of my Zhuan Wu clan. It's not your turn as an outsider to manage it. Humph! Shangwan Trace let out a cold snort and slowly flew towards Guhai's flying boat. Guhai held the Heavenly Zun divine seal in one hand and grasped the string puppet pole in the other as he coldly looked towards the Great Brightness King God. The two parties looked at each other coldly, as if a great battle was imminent. Swoosh! At this moment, a white light flew out from the city, instantly arriving at the center of the two parties. Great Ming King God rest his anger. Great Han Emperor rest his anger. It was the white-robed woman who stopped at the center of the two parties. Guhai looked at the woman wrapped in a white robe with a slight frown. Great Brightness King God, Guhai is right. You promised the Lord, promised Shangwan Scar. Yet do you want to go back on your word? Moreover, Kuitai, he is to blame. so why should you care too much for him? This kind of person, who doesn't know how to respect himself, will only cause trouble for the Sun God Palace. Just die. The Sun God Palace doesn't lack him. The woman in white advised. The great brightness King God said in a deep voice. On the side, Guhai was revealing a hint of doubt. The tone of the white-robed woman in front of him was actually on his side. Hey, Bingji, yet you're already speaking for Guhai. The great brightness King God said in a cold voice. The Lord's explanation. Have you forgotten? The purpose of my coming here. Have you forgotten? Is it that you want me to recall it for you? The white-robed woman, however, suddenly spoke in a deep voice. In her tone, she actually went toe-to-toe with the great brightness King God. Guhai and Shangwon scar-glanced at each other. Both of them were puzzled in their eyes. Shouldn't these two be in the same group? Why did they clash? The great brightness King God stared dead on at the white-robed woman, Bingji. And after a moment of silence, he suddenly laughed openly. Hey ha 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 ha. Good, 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 good. Bingji, you can really substitute for the role. From the moment I stepped out of the Sun God Palace, my identity is already different, Bingji said indifferently. HMPH. The great brightness King God let out a cold snort. The great brightness King God twisted his head and flew back into the city. Bingji, however, twisted her head to look at Guhai and suddenly gave a slight salute and said, Your Majesty of Great Han, the great Ming King God has an odd temperament, so I hope you'll forgive me. Oh, unhindered. Guhai shook his head doubtfully. The attitude of Bingji in front of him appeared to be too bizarre. She came with the great Ming King God and Kuitai, and the great Ming King God and Kuitai were hostile to the great Han dynasty, while the Ice G in front of her was very cordial in her attitude. Great Han Emperor, I wonder if I can board your flying boat, Bingji solemnly said. Please. Guhai flipped his hand to put away the treasure and nodded. Whew. Bingji landed on top of the deck. Ice G, Sun God Palace. It seems like there is no one like you. Shangwon Trace frowned at Bingji. Mr. Shangwon, do you know the Sun God Palace like the back of your hand? Bingji faintly said. Shangwon Trace's eyes narrowed slightly and said, Not to say that I understand, but I have heard a lot about it. Your Excellency has not been showing your true colors these days. I don't know why. Bingji slowly lifted her hat. Lift off the hat of a split second. The eyes of the crowd are eyes of flower. That split second, as if heaven and earth is dark, Bingji's face instantly lit up the whole world in general. Clear to the extreme face, colorful red lips, with that white as snow skin, a head of water blue hair and turquoise blue eyes, looks extraordinarily gorgeous, fresh. With a slight smile, it seemed to bring out countless beauties in the world. Bingji, meet the Emperor of Great Han, Bingji said with a slight salute. Bingji opened her mouth before the crowd came back to their senses, but Bingji's appearance was indeed exceptionally beautiful and had a feeling of an iceberg. Her cold temperament was one that instantly attracted countless people. Miss Bingji's polite. I only wonder, the palace master of the Sun God Palace, what did he ask you guys to come for? Gratitude for me. I wonder if Zero is well now. No, it should be Queen Nuwa, Guhai solemnly said. Guhai, however, wasn't charmed by Bingji's beauty. After all, Chen Xiana, Long Wanjing, and Fairy Wana each had different characteristics, yet they weren't inferior to Bingji. Empress Washington. All is well with Empress Washington. Besides, there aren't many people in this world who can make Empress Washington bad. Bingji shook her head and said, Then the Sun Palace Master asked you guys to come. Guhai frowned.